headquarter building in Washington, D.C. My name is Febrio Kacaribu. Come to the press conference of the G20 Joint Finance and Agriculture Ministers Meeting, JFAMM. I will be moderating this press conference. The G20 Joint Finance and Agriculture Ministers Meeting was held in a hybrid format today, October the 11th, 2022, in Washington, D.C., United States of America. The meeting was held on the sideline of the 2022 IMF and World Bank annual meetings and was attended by the Indonesian Minister of Agriculture, along with the finance ministers of G20 countries in person. Meanwhile, other G20 agriculture ministers attended virtually. The meeting was also attended by representatives of invited countries and international organizations in agriculture and finance. Today, we are very blessed. We have Indonesian Minister of Finance, Her Excellency Ibu Sri Mulyani Indrawati, and Minister of Agriculture, His Excellency Bapak Syahrul Yassin Limpo, on the stage here with us to talk about the meeting. For the next 20 minutes, Excellencies, first we will start with Bu Sri Mulyani to give her 5 minutes remark. And after that, Minister Limpo for 5 minutes. And after that, we will open the floor for questions. Menteri, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Today's is a very important meeting, joined between Finance Minister as well as Agriculture Minister, because we also see in the past presidency as well as this year presidency of the G20 under Indonesia, the risk to food security and nutrition worldwide have increased. This is especially because of the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic, but also combined with the extreme weather event and also unstable macroeconomic condition, which is creating a very real threat for many countries. The significant challenges to food security and nutrition have been further exacerbated by the current geopolitical situation, international trade restriction, as well as rare and high price of fertilizer. This threatens political stability and economic stability in many parts of the world, not to mention that humanitarian tragedy from the hunger. To deal with some of those challenges, there have been several global initiatives to address food insecurity issues initiated both by regional as well as international forums or organizations, and even by individual countries. For example, like in Indonesia, we also have a step being taken in order for us to be able to have food security. Some of these initiatives, for example, like the UN Global Crisis Response Group, GCG, in which President Jokowi also one of the chair, the G7 Global Alliance for Food Security, or GAFS, and Global Agriculture and Food Security Program, or GAFSP. We also see the International Finance Institution Action Plan and the Global Development Initiative. World Bank, in this case, has already committed to make 30 billion available in the new and existing funding for projects linked to food as well as nutrition security over the next year, while FAO has provided timely update on global food market condition, including through the G20 agricultural market information system. For this G20 finance minister as well as central bank governor, we are all reaffirm our commitment to use all appropriate policy tools to address current economic and financial challenges, including the risk of food insecurity. The G20 stand ready to take prompt collective action on food security and nutrition, including by working with other initiatives. Last July 2022, the G20 finance minister and central bank governor discussed the critical issues of food insecurity, both in the high-level seminar strengthening global collaboration for food insecurity, and also in the third G20 finance minister and central bank governor meeting, where the member acknowledged that there is a growing food insecurity and the need for global collaboration to tackle it. Last week, the G20 Finance and Agriculture deputies met and we discussed the policy responses to address the global food insecurity. As a result, G20 should initiate a mapping exercise, which is supported by almost all the attendants this morning, and to identify ongoing global policy responses to food insecurity and potential gaps to ensure that there is no duplication with the existing efforts, and also to make sure that this initiative will add value to critically but crowded space of this issue. On today's joint meeting between the Finance and Agriculture Minister under the G20 Indonesia presidency, we provide the foundation for the necessary future coordination to determine how best to address the food insecurity challenges that we are facing today. In the meeting this morning, we discuss and reaffirm our commitment to use all available policy tools to address the risk of food insecurity and cost of living pressures experienced by many countries. We support the need for increased cooperation to ensure coordinated global response to tackling food insecurity. And we also commit to working with other multilateral initiatives in this endeavor. We agree to ask international organizations such as FAO and the World Bank to do a mapping exercise of the global policy responses to food insecurity with input from technical experts and other relevant international organizations. This mapping exercise will identify ongoing global policy responses to food insecurity, including by analyzing existing initiatives, identifying any immediate major gap, and examining the supply and demand of fertilizer. We are building on the G20 Agriculture Market Information System or AMIS, and also identifying any medium-term issue that require further technical and systematic analysis. The forum on the G20 this morning also asked FAO and World Bank to report back on the result of this mapping exercise by 2023 spring meeting. We will continue closely monitor the state of global food security in our future meeting, and we will build momentum on G20 effort to address food security ahead of the G20 Leader Summit. We stand ready to act promptly and taking any further action that may be required. We will carry forward the initiative on tackling the global food security issue under the 2023 G20 Indian presidency. So that is the result that we are trying to mobilize within the G20 to address the issue which is critically important for our country, that is food security. I will over to.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Limpo, the floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dalam pertemuan bersama para Menteri Keuangan dan Menteri Pertanian atau Joint Finance and Agriculture Minister
meeting, G20, we need to respond the food security and then global risks because of the climate change, COVID-19 pandemic, and also geopolitical tension. In the meeting this morning, all the meetings that was held in the meeting in Washington and Indonesia, all the countries, they are worried with the food insecurity, and then we need to overcome these serious issues. So that's why in this joint meeting between the finance minister and the agriculture minister, this is a strategic meeting and very important, and then we would like to with all the response, the feedback also that's trigger the effective response in the future. COVID-19 pandemic has the impact limitation of regional transport and international transport of goods, and also food production and also food distribution. And then now we have the food price is skyrocketing, and On the other side, the fertilizer price of the fertilizers also become a problem globally, and then we experience this nationwide or in a global war. All of this also impacted in finance, production financing, because the production cost is going to be also increased, and then some of the countries have protection to protect the national supply, and as the impact, this will disrupt the food security or food production and food supply in the national level. There's the increase of risk in the availability of nutrition and then food, especially in the rural areas. In the global level, this is also worsening the food insecurity and then also nutrition in developing countries. And the situations also become more complex because of the climate change, and then also degrading of these natural resources, and also the infectious diseases that we are experiencing now. As the global community in handling all these issues, G20 has the commitment to support and then playing the crucial roles both in agricultural sector to provide food and nutrition, and then also to support exclusive and sustainable without leaving any child behind or leaving any people behind or alienated people. So because of the kind of COVID-19 pandemic, to strengthen our agriculture, the agricultural group for G20, we need to ensure the affordability and availability of security of food, and to increase the distribution of food, and also the reliability and the certainty and the just and the open transparency for open market and bilateral food market, and to create the GFAM meeting produce
Dalam bentuk
to provide mutual resolution in providing financing scheme, international funding for increasing the food and also agricultural sectors. First, to promote the resilient and sustainable food. Promote, secondly, to promote open market of agricultural product, just, predictable, transparent, and non-discriminative, to ensure the availability and affordability of the food product for all of us. And third, to promote the entrepreneurship and innovative agricultural product, both to digitalize the farming and also to increase the livelihood of the farming in the rural areas. And all of these are really connected and become our focus in global era to build the sustainable development and to face the impact of COVID-19, geopolitical tension, and climate change. We need a strategy to increase production. And because of this, we need to also reduce inflation, and we need to lift all the restriction. And also the third one, to increase global market and also increase the export. Food is human right. That's why there won't be any barrier necessary, and we need to make sure that the accessibility of the food can be reached by all. And last but not least, to face the global food crisis and the multidimensional crisis in the future, we need to make sure we work together, collaboration and adaptation to adapt the new technological advancement and also collaboration between countries. Thank you.
I will open the question.
Terima kasih.
And if you want to ask a question, lady and person, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much, Andrea Shalal with Reuters. I wanted to ask if you could talk a little bit about the atmospherics in this room, given what we saw in the spring meetings when Western officials walked out of G20 meetings, when Russian officials spoke. Can you explain how that went in the room and what you're seeing in terms of the Russians specifically participating and agreeing to some of the measures that you've mentioned?
Thank you. The next question. So we're just going to collect question first. No, we're just going to collect question first. Go ahead.
Sure. Shabtai Gold with DevX. I was just wondering if you can explain a little bit more what you mean by this cooperation and collaboration on food security. This crisis has been brewing for some months. There's been a lot of talk about global cooperation. Practically, what steps are you seeing, and what is going to happen going into our meetings? Thank you.
Thank you. I will open one question from the WebEx. Fadil from Jakarta Post. Go ahead. Fadil, can you hear us? I don't think we can hear you. I think I can read.
Do you hear me?
Oh yeah, good. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So my first question would be, so what are actually the concrete outputs of benefits of these particular meetings towards the G20 members and to the global community, and how actually this particular meeting actually address the possible crisis of food insecurity in the near future? So that's my first question. And my first question would be, so actually the WTO has said that there has been an increasing trade restrictions in these recent times, and then how does this particular meeting actually address the issue of the increasing trade restrictions on food and fertilizer that was imposed by member states? And last but not least is that, excuse
Okay,
me, sir.
good. We got two questions from you. So thank you. We just collected three questions. I would like to give the first opportunity to Minister Sri Mulyani to address.
Thank you. For this particular discussion, of course, we are focusing on the food security as well as related to nutrition as well as fertilizer. What is the atmospheric situation? I think this is has been quite some time for the G20 now discussing, and just like the finance and health minister meeting, finance and agriculture meeting, we are really focused on the issue related to the food crisis. The statement being made by all the members in this case, whether this is related to the war in Ukraine, I think the same statement that many country is already also expressing their, of course, position regarding the war. On the other hand, the Russia is actually stating regarding that the food problem is actually beginning just even before the war is actually began. So there is still quite a wide gap. But despite that, I think we are all agreed that the food crisis need to be addressed, and that is really what is usually what we are expecting from this meeting. That after the discussion regarding what is causing this problem, now focus in terms of how you are going to respond that. And on that, how we are going to respond, as I mentioned earlier, first that the collaboration and the coordination which you are asking, first is of course recognizing that with this kind of issue, especially related to food, countries, regional cooperation, or even global initiative is already being also initiated in addressing this issue. So we are not pretending that there is nothing happen, there is no response at all. So we recognize that this is already being handled or at least responded, whether at the country level or regional level or international level. We also, in this case, urging and even asking in this case of AO and World Bank now to map the whole policy responses globally. Because when everybody like doing it without any collaboration and the same data and dashboard, it could be overlap, or it could be also an area which is critically important as not being addressed. So by having FAO and the bank, the World Bank, to map and also exercising what is the policy response for each country, regional as well as global, then we are going to be able to then identify where the area that still need to have more focus. For example, like on the short run, what food program is showing that the demand for humanitarian support is really doubling, more than doubling, and where this is going to be solved, how we are going to solve this. While we are talking about the medium term area, for example, sustainable food and agriculture, this is going to be also one of the most important. Minister of Agriculture can explain later on. For example, like using the digital technology, we are talking about how to address the issue of climate change within this food, and how we are going to develop to a seed that is going to be more resilient with the climate change. Those are all is going to be like medium term discussion. There is also a growing almost synchronized concern related to the fertilizer, especially whether this is from the World Bank, ADB, FAO, and other, and as well as from countries, that the fertilizer problem today will have the impact on the food availability and even food crisis in the next 8 to 12 months. So we are heading in 2023, which is going to be much more highly risky for this food problem. So with that kind of initiative, collaboration, after we are able to identify and mapping the exercise, then we are going to be able to address the issue, what is the immediate major gaps. As I mentioned earlier, the timeline is going to be spring meeting next year, 2023, meaning that this is going to be in India G20 presidency, which is going to take over, and the mapping of the what is the global response, as well as initiative which is being taken at the country level, regional level, and global level. Then we can identify what is the major gap and how we are going to be able to address both on the supply side, demand side, as well as on the distribution side. We are also going to discuss about the fertilizer. I think this is going to be a very important one. And this is not building from scratch. As you know, that the G20 Agriculture Market Information System has been established. So this is going to be able to build based on that. So we are going to like really organizing it. The G20 usually have the strength and the power to really convening and also asking both country, multilateral institution or international organization, as well as regional initiative. This is going to be one of very more organized, systemic, and hopefully it's going to be a full, complete mapping of all the initiative. We also discussed regarding what can be done in the immediate future. This is especially related to how we are going to be able to timely respond it the country which is really need to have especially imported food while their balance of payment as well as their fiscal position is not really available. So is there anything, for example, related to the debt service relief that can be provided within the context of the common framework, which is already being discussed within the finance and central bank governors meeting? We also can also provide support directly to the household and where the resources should be coming from. A good discussion or at least expression from the experience coming from many different countries regarding how they protect the vulnerable household, which is I think is very, very important. We also, in this case, collecting all the initiative which is being announced. Like, for example, the World Bank saying that they have 30 billion initiative dealing with this food crisis. We also see since last year during the Rome leaders with the commitment on the G20 to provide 100 billion of budgetary support. So that that can be then access to the country which is facing with this kind of both financial and food crisis, and also in kind for the World Food Program. We are also discussing the IMF, which is stating that they have a new initiative which is dealing with the food shock, including in this case using the SDR reallocation. EVAT in this case, mentioning about the potential of having the initiative on a financial arrangement, especially at the village level. This is going to be very critical, especially in supporting many micro and small medium enterprises in improving their capacity. So there are so many initiatives which is going to be mapped, and it's good for us to be able to identify which area that still need to be addressed. And this is going to be one of the area which is very important in providing value added without overlapping, or in this case, creating a mechanism which is already in place. That's for the first and the second question. The third question is, well, the concrete output is, as I mentioned earlier, and how to address, well, Menteri Pertanian is going to address this. On the WTO increased trade restriction, I think this is being expressed not only by the WTO, but also some country is actually saying that we need to restrain ourselves for using this kind of trade restriction, because the result at the aggregate global level is going to be better. But at the same time, we also know that when you are dealing with the food crisis, usually the tension from domestic population is going to be very, very high. So how we are going to be able to lessen this trade-off and lessen this kind of tension, so that at the end, globally, the result is not going to be worse off. So
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Limpo, if you'd like to address the about the concrete deliverables, floor is yours, sir.
Saya cuma menambahkan apa yang sudah disampaikan Menteri Keuangan.
I'd like to add from the Ministry of Finance already said, especially the previous two meetings, one in Bali with all the Ministry of Agriculture and also Finance, and also this joint meeting today. We share the same concern to face the global food crisis, and all countries agree that we need to focus on this. And one of the future orientation to have the mitigation and adaptation for the new challenges, and especially because of the climate change and also pandemic and also geopolitical tension that's also impacting in scarcity of fertilizer, and then the disruption of international food market. And these concerns, we have three focuses here. The priorities of each country should be included. That's why we need the collaboration and cooperation. How to anticipate digital adaptation or mechanism automation, and then all the new challenges that we need to face together. And then two, I would like to thank Mr. Minister of Finance that's already committed in terms of budget, and also each department or each ministry and international organization already commit or pledge to strengthen the agriculture. This is also give us strength to provide our food security. The third one, international trade. The disrupted international trade because of the COVID, and also because of the protections, because of the national interests of each countries. We need to release this, and we have to make sure that the international trade has to be free from restriction, and then no country needs to protect or close their border to international trade. That's making the disruption of the international trade. Distinguished guests, this is very important, and we, for the financial and agriculture minister in G20, we need to have the resilient and then sustainable food increase in food production. This will be our main focus, and we have to also need the support of the experts, and then the digital technology investment, and we see if his heart is going to be burned, and if this war is getting bloody. It happens to all these countries. And then two, we need to have the open market, just predictable, and the most important part, it is eh, we can estimate this when, and also transparent, and then non-discriminative, to ensure the visibility and affordability of the food to each countries. this is a serious problem, and we need to ensure we can address this in the next meetings. I agree with the Minister of Finance that this discussion can be held, also can be continued with the next meeting to have the actualization of the progress of the efforts, especially with the countries that's already play important efforts. And also we need to have the boost the entrepreneurs entrepreneurs with the villager, for example, in the village levels or rural areas, the ensure enhance the farmers' livelihood. I think that's the original statement from me. And then we from Indonesia or in Indonesia, we have 3 steps of intervention. One, strengthening the influence the food resiliency towards inflation to the food reserve so that the inflation, the impact towards inflation, the food security towards inflation is very big too. The dependency of import, we need to have the substitution, we need to have the alternative source of food, and we also have to be self-sufficient with the food availability. And the President Joko Widodo also need to make sure we can answer global challenges. Also the existing barriers. The third one, the export and the system from or for other countries also has to be open from Indonesia. So this is all, and I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Mr. Limpo, for all of the answers. Ladies and gentlemen, it is truly encouraging to see how, in the midst of the global uncertainties, high and volatile food and energy prices, multilateralism can still have room and potentially present more of these concrete deliverables. Hope for better and stronger collaboration between countries and international organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, especially those of you who are already type your questions online. Unfortunately, I apologize that we cannot really read all of them, but hopefully all of the answers that provided by the ministers already answer all of your questions. Lastly, thank you very much for everybody for attending. See you next time. Thank you.